Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session in the business stream. I'm Tamus Mistry from North Shore City Council, and what we'll be talking today about is CSP, the Citizen Services Platform. Joining me today will be Andrew Stubbins, so it's going to be a two-horse show. I'll be talking about North Shore City, the vision, and also what we have developed using the Customer Services Platform. Andrew will talk about the project and how we went about doing it, and I'll end the thing talking about the value proposition, what CSP is all about, and the total business value the nation as a whole can get out of this, let's hope. Okay, so a quick introduction. We had a whole transformation vision in North Shore. But before I go into that, quick introduction to those who don't know. North Shore City Council, one of the councils in the greater Auckland area, fourth largest council by population. All right, one of the most beautiful areas to live in. So if there are any North Shore people, I'm sure you all enjoy living, wonderful beaches, pretty big organization. We have over 1,000 odd employees, 4 billion in assets, 350 million around that annual turnover. The council has got different divisions: strategy, policy, environment services, infrastructure. They make up the council as a whole. Now, what we had was an IT area, which was in those days called information services, going back 5 years. What we realized that many councils and many businesses were very process-centric. They designed things based on rules, laws, or whatever, but really didn't take into account the customer. And so the big thing for us was we built a transformation vision, which we said, the citizen or the customer is central to everything we do. And in anything we do, we've got to involve them and build services along with them, for them. So there was a lot of work we went on. We put papers to council and so forth. And what we did was in 2008, so we started in 2008, we formed a special division which was called Customer and Information Services, where we merged the IT and the customer service people into one division. And what that allowed us to do was to say, the customer, as you can see in this little thing which we built, is that people are central to everything we do. We engage with them, we design services with them, we then build it in consultation with them, we deliver that service, and then the process goes on. We improve all the time. And that was very central to how we wanted to go forward. Now, having said that, what we had was we wanted to establish a customer user interface by which we could offer all these services independent of the back-end system. So as a council, we have got lots of different back-end systems. And unfortunately, all of them are not easily available to customers or cannot be because of legacy reasons or whatever. So we wanted to build a nice new front end whereby we could deliver services immaterial of the back-end systems that were involved. And we wanted to make sure that it was very easy to access. And of course, the internet was the main channel we were going to use. It was very simple in terms of the usability, presentation of services, very easy to find things, and somewhere where we could build communities in the future as we were going down that path. So we were looking around in the market, and of course we started talking with Microsoft, who is one of our partners, and they talked to us about this thing called Citizen Services Platform, all right, CSP, and it's around 2008 is when they were sort of talking about it. So we started talking to them about it, and we tried to get a head around what exactly it meant. Now, what I'm going to show you in the next few slides, there's a lot of material, and the reason for that, it's all Microsoft marketing material, all their gobbledygook. So I have to go through those, but I'll talk to you about some of the important things. So as Microsoft likes to say, it's a comprehensive offering to help governments reduce costs and be more efficient and responsive to customers. Very good marketing lines. So what you will find is, as I said, this is straight out from there. Meet business challenges and all the rest of it. So we said, oh, very good stuff. What exactly is this thing called CSP? So when you go to the brochure, they give you this beautiful diagram with all these things. And we still couldn't understand, well, what is CSP? You know? And the reality is, all this is great marketing material. And all this is trying to tell you in a nutshell, and I know people at Microsoft may get upset, it's all it's trying to say is, well, we understand government has problems, and that's what the slide is actually saying, that you've got all these different areas and challenges. Then they go on to say in their brochure, well, if you put in CSP, you can reduce costs, you know, improve implementation, ease of flexibility, and you can support multiple different organizations. So all really good marketing stuff. But what exactly is CSP? And, well, we'll come to know about it. So we went down this journey with Microsoft. We signed a contract with them, and we said, okay, let's go ahead and develop the CSP. So really, and Andrew will show you a slide when he talks about what really comprises of CSP, is we wanted to build a user interface, as I talked earlier about, which allows us to interact with the customers. So the main thing for that was we went and refreshed our website. We completely got rid of the old interface. We spent a lot of money and effort in all the legwork which was required. So what I'm going to do right now is go on to the live site. Oops. Okay, so this is our website, our customer user interface. So one of the big things we did was the fact that the big councils are very complex organizations. You know, they offer lots of services. We've got a service catalog that runs into hundreds of items. And what we've got over here is an information architecture we built. So we got one company to come up with an information architecture, then I had another company to see if that company did a good job, then we talked to our customers. We spent a lot of time and effort making sure the first thing is getting our information architecture right. So once we got the information architecture right, all right, I'm going to walk you through some of the stuff. So this whole website is built using Microsoft tools, and to the heart of it is SharePoint. So for information architecture, we came up with these 4 main categories, and we have this over here called Do It Online. So online activities were growing, and so we had something, and we came up with clever terminology like pay it. So if you want to pay for anything, you go into that section, we'll go there. You know, if you want to have a say about something, you want to request for some information, whatever the case may be. So I'll quickly walk you through this to get an understanding of it. Then what we did was we had, along with this whole information architecture, lots of interesting bits associated with metadata. For all the content we were creating, there were templates built and associated metadata for it. So what you see over here is automatically generated. So when a content person goes and updates the content and hits the button, it automatically gets slotted into the right spot based on all the metadata. So it may be in another area, but if it's a hot item, it may appear in the lower part, or it may come up over here. All these things are sort of automated based on the metadata. So that was quite important. What it meant was that we could have a site which was relatively easy to maintain and kept the cost down for its ongoing. Then we threw in a lot of interesting things like, you know, widgets like we've got, you know, over here, a tag cloud, you know, asking for opinions about certain things. So a survey question, things like quick links. Then we also wanted to make it usability, so we added browse aloud. You know, it reads the site out to you. So if you've installed the plugin, it's a free plugin, it reads the site out to you. But just to quickly walk you through it, so before I go there, so the information architecture was quite important. So when you go in over there, and let's say we went into animals and insects, all right, what you notice is there are certain look and feels that we have built based on information we got. When you go to a traditional site, you find that you get a lot of material presented to you. So what the whole thing around information architecture was, we were taught or told that, you know, introduce a concept, give more, and if a person wants more, they can go down. So you will find that no matter which area you go to, let's say we go arts and culture, again, we have these next level down, and when you go down the next level underneath that, and you're going down to the next level, and that's it. You only go down up to 4 levels and it stops. So all this was built, as I said, with information architecture in mind with regards to CSP. Now, what I want you all to notice as well, and as I said, I sort of can't cover everything, but is as we went down into different areas, what you would have noticed is there are certain areas on the right-hand side that automatically change associated with what you're looking at. So if I went into an area called, let's go back into there, and said dogs, okay, what you will find that as you go through these different areas, not only it brings down the categories of that, but over here it says, well, there's a service where you can pay for your dog registration or an animal fine. So automatically what it's doing for the user is it's saying, if you're in this area, these are all the related things you may want to do while you're in that area. And it's all happening on the fly depending on the area they're in. Okay, so we talked about information architecture over here. The other thing was very important to us. We were going to offer a whole host of online services, and I won't take you through many, but when you go to do it online, one of the key things is very often you need to log in to get services. So what we built was the fact that there is the government log-on service, and we interfaced into that. So we built the SharePoint, which has a interface which automatically goes in. So if you've got that service available to you, that's how we wanted our users to come through, because it is something that is going to be compulsory going forward for all government agencies to use for logging on going forward. So we built that in. So a user would log in. Once a user is logged in, what we've built over here, but we haven't gone too forward with it, because once we went live with this, the whole Super City thing came up. So we sort of put the brakes on this big time and stopped a lot of the stuff, is the fact that each user has not only a government logon account, but an account within the site as well. So we can customize it for the user as well. So what I'm trying to show you over here is the fact that if we go to, let's say, dog registration or something like that, it just brings up the dog registration payment or registration service. So we've got, I think, about 45 different online services available for users to use. So we've got quite a big range of services available. And what it's doing over here is, depending on the service, it could be just calling another .NET application, or what it could be doing is using another interface from another application and just putting it into an iframe and just showing it up as though it's a North Shore look and feel. Okay, what we also have is, let me get back over here. All right, some of the smarts, as I said, we've built in is, if we go over here, and just to show you a quick thing, agendas and minutes. Now this was a big thing. When we were designing our site, we looked at what were the big hits that we were often getting on, and one of the things were people were coming in to look up agendas and meetings, because we have council meetings, we have community board meetings. So what we built again over here is a mini app which is built into it, where a person can say, okay, I'm in a particular location and I want all the minutes that are from April, let's say March, whatever date, in the North Coast area, and it automatically goes and brings those out. So we've got thousands of these minutes and agendas which are there, which the users. So this is, again, a very popular thing and very time-saving, because it was very time-consuming previously. What we also have got is smarter searches. Okay. All right, so let me put something in. Okay, so what we've got is a whole lot of stuff about dogs coming up, but what I wanted to show you also was, based on all the information architecture and the templates we designed, we've got things which are associated with other keywords, themes. It automatically gets built up for that. What we also had was, as I said, it's built in, but we're not using it, is on personas as well. So if you came in and you said, I'm a builder, what it tries to do is tries to narrow the content and only show you things that are associated with builders, so you can find the stuff faster. So it's all built in to the website which we have over here. So as I said, it's just, I'm going through it just to give you a feel of all the different things which we have on the site, which is very useful to make it user-friendly. So Ask North Shore is another interesting thing we built. What we realized is that every website tends to have an FAQ. But could we make that FAQ a little bit more interesting and more precise? So what we have said is, how can we help you? So what it does over here is it allows you to narrow things down and say, I want to know something about animal control, let's say. And then it says, okay, what do you want to know? Something about dogs? And what it does is it gives you those questions quickly associated with that, rather than, FAQ. So it's got all the links built in, and it automatically says, okay, you're looking for something to do with dogs, or if it was building consent, it says, about microchipping. I can't see what exactly is there, looking quite light, and a few other bits. Do you see that? So it goes, tells the user something, and what you will notice is it gives them a quick synopsis of it, and then, if you click on the related links dogs, it takes you onto the website where you can have the big read of what you want to know about it. So as you can see, what we have worked on is trying to make it as simple and easy for the customer. Okay. Now, I've given you a quick overview of the website. As I said, there are hundreds and hundreds of nice little things we have built in. Just to give you guys a quick idea, I'm cognizant of time. One of the big things we have also interfaced into this is our GIS, and this is very important as well, because this is showing us how we have made it customer friendly and saving customer money. So I'll just give a, let's say, okay, so it's bringing up all this. So I'll just select our council building. Okay. So it's hard to see it over here because I think it's too faded, but I'll give you a quick idea of what I'm trying to show you. So let's say you want to build a house and you want to know where's the wastewater pipe, where's the water supply pipe, and so forth. So it's building the map up, showing these two things. All right. Now, imagine you're an architect, and this is what many people don't realize. Architects, when you go to them to build plans and so forth, they need to know where all these utilities are in the ground. Now, if the council has it, you can go onto the website, and what many people do is they take this, they print it out, then they use a digitizing tablet, make it digital, bring it into their CAD program, and then use it, so it saves the initial cost. Before you send a survey out, you've got the rough drawings, you can use that. So what we said was, well, we didn't really feel that was, if we have the information, let's give it to the customer. So we created this thing called an export wizard, and we say we want it as a vector file. We say yes. I'll quickly just say that. Next. Doesn't matter. AutoCAD, that's the universal standard. And da-da-da. And what is happening right now is it's actually going and creating the file to be exported out as an AutoCAD file. So you now, the architect or the owner of the property, have all the information which you selected available to download and import it into your drawing. Now, normally these sort of things, cost hundreds of dollars to do, but we have all this information and we just give it. We say, it's public information, so give it to your customers. And that was that ethos we believed in, transforming our council to be more customer focused. There are no secrets. If we've got it and we can deliver it to you. So this is free. And there are hundreds of people using it, saving them, well, literally for some of the big buildings, and what feedback we've got from the architect, literally hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, because they've got all this available electronically. Okay, so that's given you a flavor of the website. Now, as I said, I'm cognizant of time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to Andrew, and he will talk about the next one.
Right, am I on? I'm Andrew Stubbins. My role at North Shore City is, the title I've got is Business Solutions Specialist, which basically means I have to work out what the business wants, work out how to do it, and then deliver it. And in terms of this particular project, I was the guy program managing the overall delivery. Probably correlates to my hair loss, but it's a different story. So what I just wanted to cover off is just some aspects of the delivery of this project. This is a fairly simple overview of, I guess, the scope of it. We moved through the standard types of activities that you would follow on something like this, so working out our architecture, doing design, and so on. More importantly, and I think in terms of a lesson learned, putting together a framework in which you can actually understand the overall scope of the project and guide the different aspects of it is quite important. And there's a more detailed, I guess, architectural framework behind this that we put together. So within the context of our existing technology platform, one of the key things we had to do is we didn't really have SharePoint in place, particularly from a content management system perspective and serving up to the web. So a major component of what we had to deliver was putting in place this web technology platform. That included all the hardware, getting the SharePoint environment in place, and a lot of work goes into that, and architecting and designing that correctly, taking into account things like security. So deployment was quite a big thing in that regard. Probably talk a bit afterwards if anyone's interested in that. But effectively, we don't put our website in the DMZ, which you traditionally would do. It's actually within the internal network. That has licensing implications as well, which is quite a big thing with SharePoint. So I guess a lesson learned was you got to try and understand your licensing impacts up front, because as you progress with the project and start to change things in terms of implementation, that can come out and bite you. Using Microsoft Speak, I guess, then on top of your technology platform, we then started to build what they call their SharePoint applications. So the public-facing website was one of them. The other thing that Tamas alluded to was what we started to call the customer portal. So we had this vision of being able to create a space where customers could actually set up an account with us, start to tailor over time their whole experience with us. Things such as some of the transactions that they were incurring with us, they could actually look back at their history, etc., etc. We haven't gone too far down that track. Super City hit us, so we had to put a hold on a lot of that. And that's where we got involved with DIA and the government log-on service. So there was a whole lot of integration in that regard. The other big area that we had to take care of was, broadly speaking, what we called online services. And from recollection, we had to deal with about 64 different existing online services. And we had to be quite careful in terms of the existing integration and how those were deployed and so forth. So that was quite challenging. The other thing that I've put up in the top right there was at the same time we had a very, I guess, ambitious, challenging project underway around what was called electronic building consents online. As far as I am aware, it's probably the only one, certainly in this part of the world, in Australasia, that actually does this. And basically what that allows you to do, or customers to do, is to come in and actually lodge building consent applications online instead of having to fill out endless forms, come into council offices to do that, etc., etc. So there's a whole online service around that. And Tamus could talk ad nauseum about that, but that's been incredibly successful. And I'll just touch on that a little bit further on. So translating that, I guess, into a timeline, we really kicked off the actual building part of things in March, with the target date of actually going live in July 2009, which was incredibly aggressive. We'd spent quite a bit of time before December 2008 really trying to understand the project, the different parts of it, coming up with a solution proposal around that. And yeah, there was a lot of the vendors we were engaging with really questioned whether it could be achieved by July. Essentially, the big piece was kicking off in March there around that CSP development. We were working with Microsoft, so Microsoft were priming the project at that stage, and under them Datacom were our development partner as well. One of the things I'll talk a bit under lessons learned is we actually had got a separate company to do some of the actual design, and that had happened in the October, November, December time frame. And there were various reasons for that. To cut a long story short, we had a number of concurrent phases actually taking place, and I think this is another lesson to be learned. Content migration and authoring is a major one. It's a whole project in its own right. From recollection, we probably had about 8,000 or 9,000 pages on the old website that we had to think about, and definitely didn't want to necessarily bring all of that content across. And in fact, that was one of the major drives to going to a new platform, a new website, was customers were finding the old site really difficult to navigate. Search wasn't all that good. And the third area was really content needed to be refreshed. And of course, being an older site, we didn't really have an appropriate content management system under that to maintain that content. So it's very easy to let that content side go. So that was a major area. And in fact, what you'll notice is when we eventually did deploy and go live, it was a couple of months after July. One of the things that impacted us was effectively that content migration and authoring process. And a lot of that had to do with working with the business and actually going through your standard sign-off process, etc., etc. The other thing that's probably worth noting here is that we had to do a little bit of design refactoring. So as Thomas mentioned earlier, we were constantly talking to customers and doing design reviews and that. And it might sound a bit unusual to say, well, why didn't you have that sorted out up front? And the simple answer is that quite often you'll have a design, it's great, until you start to implement it. And you start to realize that, particularly around your information architecture, that some things just from a usability point of view don't make sense. So we went through a couple of weeks of just refactoring aspects of that to make it more usable based on feedback we were getting from customers and just using the site in a pilot mode, if you like. And then we went through a deployment to go live. I don't want to really dwell on this too much. It just gives you a flavour of the kind of technologies involved in the Microsoft CSP solution. The key one obviously being SharePoint. The point that I just wanted to make there was we didn't use everything. And certainly when it came to things like GIS and so on, we were using our own technologies. This probably is a bit conceptual, but what it's trying to just outline at a very high level is, in addition to SharePoint and your web side of things, we were trying to put in place the building blocks to support, for example, the concept of a customer portal and all the security around that, but also then to support things like that electronic building consents application. And the only thing I'll mention in that regard is somewhere in there, it's probably disappeared, but oh, there it is in blue. We put in place an operational data hub. And we've found over the years that that's actually quite a useful way of presenting master data that you may need in online applications and others. So it's an interim store of data so we're not hitting our back-end transactional systems. So we've used that with EBC. One of the advantages of that as well is we've been, once a customer's actually created an application and it's gone through the lodgement process, we then update that operational data store in terms of the lifecycle status information associated with that application. So you can actually use and present data outside of your transactional systems, and that's been quite useful. Just really to conclude, some of the key lessons that are worth noting is a real major one, and I've had to do this on basically a similar project where we've gone from what we have done at North Shore. Now we're doing it for a couple of the new entities that will exist under the Super Council, one of them being Auckland Transport. And that is, establish your project constraints up front. We had quite a big team from different aspects of the business. And some of the things that I'm talking about around that would be, for example, our technology choices. In some of the teams, there was endless debate around the fact that we were going to use SharePoint as our content management system. That was probably unnecessary, and with hindsight, we should have probably been a lot more firm, if you like, in terms of saying, guys, this is a constraint. It's not up for debate. Move on. But a lot of time and energy can be lost in those sort of debates. Another big one for me that I think is quite important is, where's the leadership? By that I mean, and maybe this is just something for the vendors out there, and that is, we were in a situation where we hadn't actually ever used SharePoint in anger before. We didn't know all the nuts and bolts of SharePoint, so we needed leadership, and it at times was quite difficult to understand the next steps. So, for example, just leading into solution architecture, some of the building blocks that you have to get in place, we started to discover a bit late in the piece. So, for example, one of the key dependencies is obviously getting your design and your visual design nailed down so that you can establish your various page templates. So that's one of the first things that you have to get in place before you do anything else. Another very, very critical building block that nearly fell through the cracks was the whole area of metadata. And in SharePoint, that's quite fundamental. And I think at that stage, we weren't quite aware of just to what extent metadata is critical to some of the stuff and functionality that Thomas showed you. And really in a nutshell, not only does metadata need to actually support things like your search, but it's actually quite critical to some of the administration side, which happens behind the scenes, and then also implementing certain functionality across the site. So that was quite key. So just to elaborate just a little bit more on that, why those building blocks are quite important, and to understand the sequence of those is because we would have the content authoring team worrying about workflows and all of that, but that's stuff that you can actually do concurrently when you're setting up the site. If you don't have metadata in place, you're certainly not going to be able to start content authoring, and that was a big lesson for us. The other big lesson is, and we knew this already, but circumstances lead to it, and that is, I personally don't believe you should split your design and your development teams. I think if you're going to do, particularly on something like SharePoint, the organisation who's going to do the design should actually carry through and do the development as well. It's really quite hard to move from a design and then pick it up as a development team if you haven't actually been involved in that. Another big one for us was really just how much effort, and as I said earlier, the whole content migration and authoring side of things is. And that's something you can start a lot earlier than actually when the technology and the site and that is available. Perhaps for me, one of the most interesting aspects of this project was the day that, I think, by the way, we used a fairly agile methodology. We had scrums and what have you to deliver this, and it was somewhere near the end of the second one where I had the team together and I said, how do we go live? And I got blank looks, and the technical guys were saying, well, what do you mean? We just go live. I said, well, tell me how. And out of that discussion, we ended up going through about 6 weeks in duration of working out how to go live. And part of the problem was we had an existing website that had a hell of a lot of integration and stuff in it, existing online services, and we started to discover things that there were third-party websites that we happened to be hosting and supporting for things like the leisure centres and various other organisations that were actually sub-sites within the existing websites. So we knew that if we blew away that web server, for example, we'd lose a hell of a lot of things. And there was a lot of work to work out how to actually switch over from that to the new website with all the online services and so on intact. Major learning. And then the last thing is really, what about the customer? I think one of the most valuable things that we did was some weeks before actually going live, we did a formal pilot with a sample of customers who wanted to actually participate, and it was quite interesting to see the feedback and so on that they gave us. Incredibly positive. We were quite surprised by it. And The other thing that was quite surprising out of that was just some of the small usability things, and just watching how they interacted with the site. You know, we thought there'd be some issues with the older generation, and what we found was no issue with them at all. They loved it. So that in a nutshell is how we went about delivering the thing. I guess if we've got time afterwards, we can field some questions, but I'll hand over to Thomas just to talk about the value proposition now.
Okay. As Andrew was talking about all the sort of learnings we had, one thing one has to keep in mind is we were early pioneers of SharePoint. We had the old Microsoft CMS for our intranet, and SharePoint was relatively new. So if people are going down this path, most of the stuff has been fixed in SharePoint 2010. And that's why it took us so long, because in metadata, all the metadata stuff we wanted, it was custom build, custom build, custom build, custom build. And it wasn't something which was just out of the box from SharePoint 2007 in those days. 2010 has made vast improvements in that whole area. Now, delivering on the CSP promise. Remember I told you all that marketing gobbledygook that Microsoft went on about, you know, in terms of, oh, look at these wonderful diagrams. This is what CSP is. Okay, so the CSP implementation at North Shore has been taken advantage of two big agencies, the CCOs that are coming up in Auckland, the Transport Agency and Watercare. And just going to quickly, because these are not live sites, because again, they all kick in on the 1st of November, just going to quickly show you some. So if you look at it, this is the transport side. Look at the similarity. So they've used the same templates, changed the colors and all. Of course, branding is different and everything else as well, but the information architecture is same. You can see the similarities. You know, all this sort of pay for it stuff, some online forms and so forth. So it's giving you an idea of what Auckland Transport's going to look like. This is what sort of Watercare is going to look like. As you can see, again, similarities over there coming through. You know, again, the different layers we go down. And, you know, some examples of search and forms and so forth. So, remember there was that slide which says these are the 4 benefits. So what exactly is CSP? And I'll be honest with you, over the years, I've been to many Microsoft CSP presentations, and I've actually come out confused, because they talk about all sorts of time machines and this and that and all sorts of interesting slides which they get from all over the world. But the reality is CSP, all it means is saying if you stick to the Microsoft platform, you can leverage that off and other organizations can do it. And that slide which Andrew talked about with all those sort of Microsoft products, and we switched off a few where we use PowerPoint, we use BizTalk, we use their .NET architecture and all the rest of it. That's what CSP is, using that whole framework to develop your solutions. And that stuff I showed you with regards to the GIS stuff, well, it's a Java application, but it talks to the CSP. So it's all part of that framework, and that's the big advantage. So remember they talked about in that slide, it'll reduce your cost, improve your speed of implementation, enable flexibility, support a broad range of organizations. Well, to give you an idea, and I'll talk about Auckland Transport because that's the one, quite a bit of work has been done on. Watercare is being worked on. The branding was changed. They went from SharePoint 2007 to 2010. Full load of comprehensive functionality. A whole host of those things. User acceptance testing went 3 months ago. So right now, it was all fine, and now we are putting content into that site. So it's just being filled up with content. And the last point is the real crunch of CSP. That had the other agencies gone down with this comprehensive website, all right, it would have taken them about 3 times longer. So what we're saying is in about 3.5 months, the whole transport site was ready without content. So it had all that stuff built in. And it would have cost about 4 or 5 times as much. So the whole value of CSP, and that's what Microsoft's slide is all about, is saying the value is to the government or the nation as a whole, where you can reuse these things and keep adding value. And that's really the value proposition for CSP. Stick to that whole framework which Microsoft has, where the interconnects and all that are happening. You can take it to this organization, the next and the next. And we've got a few other councils also seriously looking at implementing this as well. And so that's where really the key is, the total value proposition. That someone can be up and running in 3 months, which took us, as I said, the whole build time, we started sort of, as we said, in September, but there was talk before it and so forth. So something which took about, let's say, a year for argument's sake, could be done in 3-4 months. And what's the value proposition to government organizations? Well, it's, as I said, it's the information architecture, the taxonomy, the way we have built it for government organizations, the metadata, the page layouts, all the little sort of things we built in, the minutes and agendas and things like that. So if you're another council or another government organization and you have a lot of that, it's all built in. All you have to go in is, delete all the stuff we have, put your documents in, put the right metadata in, and that's working for there as well. We've got a whole host of other online services. As I said, it would be a really long presentation, which people can piggyback off as well. And I think what was quite important is our partner Datacom, their local government division, because they worked with us through that whole build process, it was very easy for that team to reuse the knowledge they had onto the next few water care and transport as well. So it made that job really fast for them, and that actually contributed to the overall savings that they had to pay. So in other words, our value proposition from North Shore to the whole of government is whatever we have built is for public use. And we do that for every service. I've got a council saying, can we use this? Can we use that? How much do we need to pay you? I said, no, you don't pay us anything. We have done it for the public good. It's available to you. But the only thing is some of these things just can't be used by a council because often we have worked with a partner. So they go to the partner. So the partner cannot charge them for royalties or IP or anything. That's free, but they need to pay them for customizing it so that they can use it in their environment. And hopefully, that has given you an overview of Citizen Services Platform. Very simple. Let's use Microsoft technologies, and that's what that whole marketing material says. But it actually has worked out. And as I said, the 2 examples we use for water care and transport has proven the point that if those 2 organizations had to do it, it would have cost them huge amounts. But our investment is now being leveraged by multiple organizations, and the nation as a whole benefits as a result of it. So, folks, any questions? And I purposely wanted to finish soon because I know that it's the session before lunch. So, the tummies start growling and everything else, so I didn't want to go all the way till the end. And I was told the last 10 minutes are for questions anyway. Yes? How?
Social media, so back in the horizon.
Yes?
Yes,
we have that actually on our side, but we've sort of, as I said, switched things off because we are losing people in council because of the merger. We actually had integration into Facebook, Twitter, and something else as well. I remember all this done last year. But what it is for all those things, you need dedicated staff to do all that. And my team has just kept decreasing every month, like this month again, I'll lose 1 or 2 people leaving council. So we're a very thin team. So that's why many things have been switched off, literally. Yes?
Yeah, what platform did you use for search?
The Microsoft, whatever the Microsoft came with SharePoint. Yeah, default SharePoint. However, having said that, as I said, we use a lot of PDFs. All right, so to search through PDFs, we bought, I think it was Foxit Search, isn't it? Yeah. So that was a little third-party plugin which we bought, which allows us to search through PDFs. But the real default search is the Microsoft search. Yes?
Just wondering, when you guys started off down this track, did you collaborate with any of the other council around in terms of where they were, in terms of whether they were like looking to develop something like this? Because coming back to the value proposition is, it's only when you look to collaborate as a sort of a single entity throughout the government organisations is actually you're going to get the...
Okay, right. Now, North Shore City, we talk to a lot of people. Councils meet on a regular basis and so forth. We had talked to a lot of different people, but it's the level of maturity councils have. So in many of the things we have done is we have pioneered all this and others have followed. So as I said, you know, there are councils around the country who want to use this who said, oh, thank you for building it. Now we can take advantage of that. Same with our, you haven't even looked at our electronic building consenting thing. That's going to be, hopefully the concept is going to be used throughout the country. And so yes, we do talk, but often what happens is, depending on the council size, its budgets, their maturity, and what time frame they may have. They might say, oh, web is not a priority for this year, it's something else, you know, and so forth. So yes, there was definitely talk between them. In fact, we had gone and seen a few other councils as well, and a lot of them said, yeah, go ahead with it, and then we'll, you know, piggyback off what you have done. And the, well, I haven't mentioned it, but the website and a few of the services we have, we won about, what, 5 awards, well, 6 or 7 of them to date in all the local government things. So the website won the Best User Choice Award amongst the councils and the Best New or Updated Website, whatever they call that as well. So yeah, it's got a lot of recognition amongst the councils, and whenever I go and present at all these conferences, I let everybody know it's there for you guys to use, so don't try and reinvent the wheel. Piggyback on what we've got. We're not charging anybody for it. It's the investment you make to customize it to your environment.
So this, and I'll address customer-centric view you've got in terms of providing services and information through the website, through the Build Online,
Yep.
building incentives. Will that be picked up by the Super City?
Well, again, these are very political things. And I believe that going forward, yes, because the country as a whole, especially building consents and things like that, the DBH is very impressed by what well, they were involved in it as well. We were bouncing ideas off them as we built it. So yes, they have sort of, the minister had come and seen it a few months ago, Rodney Hyde and Morris Williamson. So they were totally impressed and said they'd never seen anything like this anywhere in the world. And that's right, the electronic building consents, we've actually cracked the nut, literally, by getting rid of all that difficulty and so forth, which I know when I was in Australia last year talking to other councils, they were still struggling. And in reality, it's actually quite simple. It's just sitting down and having a very simplistic approach to solving some of these so-called complex problems. And it happens. And we haven't used any fancy Microsoft tools. We've used sort of SharePoint, .NET, and that's it. You know, and we have managed, it's really the process we have used and the mini solutions that hook together solve those bigger problems.
So from the 1st of November, people in North Shore still be able to...
Yes. Oh, absolutely. That will go on. There's no drop in service. But will the people living in Auckland City be able to do it? Not really, because the people have to be trained as well. So there's a customer element to getting online, but you've got to train your internal staff as well to work in a digital world. And that, you know, in that whole process was a very big issue for us, because we had people who were always used to pen and pencil and, you know, protractors and dividers and things like that. And now we're saying none of those tools are there. All you have is a mouse, and all the tools are available digitally. So that was the biggest challenge we had, the mindset of our internal staff to get over that hump of doing everything electronically. And once that was overcome, the rest was easy from a customer side, because customers actually did everything electronically and gave us paper back, which we then processed by paper. Any other questions? No? Well, oh, okay.
In terms of learnings, if you had to do this over, is there anything you'd do differently?
Yes, I would actually. One of the things is around being very clear about the vision and on the technology. And Andrew sort of pointed that out, is the fact that we had, from a technology point of view, a vision, but it wasn't really, and I guess I blame it to the years where SharePoint wasn't that well established in New Zealand. So there were a lot of things that we wanted to do, but we had to scale back because it was costing us too much to deliver that. So that's the whole thing, is that had we known we couldn't do it in the technology, we wouldn't have had that in our vision. Then our vision would have been based on, oh, we can only have so much of a budget, let's meet that. This one was, we had that vision, we were told we could do it. When we went to do it and the tech people came in, they said, oh yeah, it can be done, but it's a special build. Yes, it can be done, but it's a special build. And the price tag just kept going up and up and up if we did all that. But now, as I said, with 2010 and document management really embedded into SharePoint, I think there is a whole host of things people can do. And as I said, transport and water care will actually take advantage of things that are in SharePoint 2010, which we had to custom build in 2007. So that was one of the main key ones.
I think another thing that I would do differently, and having gone through the cycle again, because I'm program managing the Auckland transport stuff, is we're now using SharePoint 2010. I think if you've got the time to take time to actually understand the technology platform that you're using and what you can in effect get out of the box, you don't know what you don't know. So quite often you'll have people in the digital channel worrying about web parts to do with, for example, calendars and things like that, where a lot of these features you can get right out of the box and use those. So a lot of time can be wasted trying to work out requirements and solutions to those requirements, when in fact you could drive that right in the early stages, just straight out of the box. So I think that, and that's what I was probably alluding to earlier about leadership, that it's quite hard to get that direction from the technical side. That gap between technology and business is quite hard to overcome. So I think that would be one thing I'd change.
There are lots of little things you can always fine-tune, Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for listening to us. Hope you had a good time. And I'll see you all around. So if you have questions.